Hello there. Welcome to the Saraway channel, wherever you are in the world. And so much love to each and every one of you. I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much. And I'm so delighted you've joined me for part 2 of my story tonight. So before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell and the thumbs up. And let's continue with part 2 of our story tonight. For the record, Mum and Dad, I know I've never said this before to both of you, but I want to say I really appreciate that neither of you doubted for a second that I was innocent in regards to the crime I was accused of. It meant the world to me that you believed in me so much.
But darling, of course we didn't doubt you, said Mrs. Seacourt. We've known you all our lives. We know that you aren't capable of even harming a fly. So the idea of you pushing Larry Kubeck over the cliff was laughable, to say the very least. We didn't believe that for a second.
It is a joke, agreed Mr. Seacourt.
To think anyone would believe you were capable of such a thing. On the subject of Becca, of course, I have to tell you a story that might be of interest to you.
Go on, Dad. I'm listening. You've got my attention.
Well, where do I start? One day, me and your mother went shopping together to the supermarket. She asked me to pick up some cold ham and olives from the delicatessen section for her. We were shopping at Walmart, so I bustled off to get the stuff your mother required. And when I'd got my packages, I looked for your mother up and down the supermarket aisles, wondering where she was. Your mother can sometimes be as elusive as the Scarlet Pimpernel. But that was when I heard the raised voices. One of them distinctly belonged to your mother. I remember thinking to myself, what the hell is going on? I followed the raised voices, and that was when I found your mother. She was having a huge blowout with Becca Sanchez, of all people. She'd run into the woman in the store quite by chance, I think. I've never seen your mother so inflamed, so very angry. This was her opportunity, I expect, to blow off steam. And believe me, your mother did just that. I don't think Becca Sanchez knew what had hit her when she found herself caught up in the lion's den with your mother, so to speak.
You ran into Becca Sanchez, Mum, said Candy, looking slightly bewildered. When was this?
Well, of course I ran into the woman, said Candy's mother. I mean, she still lives in town, doesn't she? And it was bound to happen sooner or later. It must have been about a year ago, I think, when I bumped into her at Walmart. Me and your father had been to Costco to pick up dog food for Sheba and to get some other supplies for the store cupboard, after which we went to Walmart. I've seen her around town before, of course, but I was rather surprised to run into her at Walmart. Let's just say, since our rather unfortunate rendezvous. These days, if Becca catches sight of me, she gives me a wide berth and scuttles away guiltily, like a dung beetle who knows it's in the wrong, but simply hasn't got the balls to admit it. I didn't know dung beetles had balls, said Bill Seacourt with a chuckle. Your mother has a lovely way with words, does she not, Candy?
She sure does, Candy laughed.
Well, I don't know about that, said Mary Seacourt. But how Becca Sanchez can show herself around town after what she did to you, I honestly don't know. Shame on her, that's what I say. That dreadful, dreadful woman is a malicious, very vindictive narcissist and psychopath rolled into one. She knows she's the one who sent you to prison, even though you weren't guilty of the crime. She looked so pleased with herself when you were put away. I didn't even know she was allowed to be in the courtroom, watching everything, given she was a witness. I remember glancing over at Becca on the day you received your sentencing. And I can promise you this, Candy. I don't know if you noticed yourself or not, but you couldn't wipe the satisfied smirk off her face. She looked absolutely triumphant that you were being sentenced. Only if she'd had her way, you'd have been locked up for life.
What did you say to her, Mum, when you ran into her at Walmart like that? Asked Candy, putting still more maple syrup over her maple syrup-soaked pancake to make it as sweet as possible. She cut off a piece with her knife, which she popped into her mouth and began to chew appreciatively. The pancake melted in her mouth, filling her tongue with a mouth-watering sweetness. "This is delicious, Mum," she said, taking the bite. "The pancakes are fluffy. They're absolutely perfect."
"Well, I'm so glad you like them, darling. You deserve to be spoilt rotten after eating all that prison slop you were telling me about. I can't imagine what the food was like in prison for you. Frankly, I don't even want to know. As incongruous as this might sound, I'm actually glad I ran into Becca that day, because I was able to give her a jolly big piece of my mind, and I didn't hold back, let me tell you." "Oh, you better believe your mother didn't hold back," said Bill Seacourt, chuckling. "Your mother laid into Becca ruthlessly hard. To tell you the truth, I almost felt sorry for her. Your mother didn't pack any punches. She glared at Becca and said, 'I hope you're happy, Becca. How does it feel to put an innocent woman away behind bars? We all know this was a set-up on your part. We know why you did it. You don't have to be an imbecile to figure it out. You were so jealous of my daughter, weren't you? You couldn't handle the fact that Larry Quebec had absolutely no interest in you whatsoever. So what did you do? You gave false witness about Candy in a court of law, even swearing on the Bible that what you were saying was true. Furthermore, you managed to persuade your friend Angie, who's always been a poodle to you, to do your bidding on demand and to give false witness as well. You're despicable. You're worse than a sewer rat. You really have no shame, do you? People like you make me want to vomit. I know what Candy told me is true. You were the one that pushed Larry Quebec over the cliff to his death, weren't you? In a sudden, premeditated fit of jealous rage. You lied to the police about everything. You obnoxiously told them you saw Candy pushing Larry over the cliff in an argument, when you know that none of that is true. What were you doing there on the cliff anyway? That's what I'd like to know. You've never been athletic, but there you were at the very perfect time to witness this so-called crime that never actually happened. Was it your plan all along to follow Candy and Larry Quebec because you were seething with jealousy? Larry Quebec had no interest in you whatsoever, so you followed him and my daughter so you could conveniently be there on the scene and push the man who rejected you over the cliff and then lay all the blame at my daughter's door. How terribly convenient for you. I know you planned this, Becca. All this is scheming on your part. I'm not an idiot. I know what happened. Candy told me everything. Do you get it? She told me everything. Candy never had an argument with Larry while she was on that cliff. She told me they were chatting away happily together. You and Angie deliberately lied on my daughter's account to get an innocent woman in prison. And you know why you did it? You did it because you were in love with Larry Quebec yourself. Weren't you, Becca? And you couldn't stand being rejected by the man. Because you're a psychopath who has absolutely no conscience. So you killed him in revenge and got my daughter incarcerated in order to get your double revenge. And how happy you must have been for things to go so swimmingly well for you. It helps, of course, that your father's brother is so well connected, which is why you got away with it. But I'll tell you something for nothing. One of these days you'll be made accountable for what you did, even if it isn't in this lifetime. And I'm sure of it. At this point it was clear to see that Becca went completely white. All the colour drained from her skin, and her eyes looked like those of a bug. But she gave your mother a smug grin and said, "I can't think what you're talking about, Mrs. Seacourt. You've completely lost me. We're obviously not on the same page, are we? I know you don't want to accept the truth, Mrs. Seacourt, which is plain to see. I hate to burst your bubble, but Candy is guilty of Larry's death. But you just don't want to accept the truth, do you? When it's staring you straight in the face. You're biased. You're very brainwashed. A mother who believes what you want to believe. You can't stomach the fact that your daughter Candy is a murderer, Mrs. Seacourt. Don't forget I was there on the cliff at the time with Angie, so we both saw what she did. They had an argument and your daughter pushed Larry over the cliff in a moment of unbridled anger. And although it was deemed an accident, the consequences of what your Candy did were fatal. And Larry Quebec fell over the cliff to his death. And that's the story I'm going to stick to. You know what happens, Mrs. Seacourt, when you do something negligent like that. What happens? You go to prison, don't you? And that's what Candy did. She was incarcerated. She should be locked up for life as far as I'm concerned. She deserves everything she gets. It's a shame, of course, her sentence was so short. I couldn't believe the jury thought it was an accident. More fool them, that's what I say. How dare you, Becca, suggest Candy should be in prison for life, when she shouldn't be in prison in the first place. You should be the one in prison. She's there because of you, and your best friend Angie, who conspired against her by telling so many lies. Of course, you're going to stick to your fictitious made-up propaganda. You managed to successfully deceive the police and to an entire court of law, did you not? They soaked up your lies like a sea sponge, but not all of them, because you are so artful at what you do, aren't you, Becca? Your tongue is so very slippery. Even your food you eat probably skates on it. I saw the way you looked at the jury with such innocent doe-like eyes, as if you were the sweetest young lady who had witnessed a travesty unfold. Bravo to you for wearing that childish flowery dress to court that made you look as if you were half your age, almost as if butter wouldn't melt in your mouth. Those pigtails you wore to court with the bows in them, now those were very good, very convincing. You could have almost persuaded me that you were a sweet, considerate person that hated to be there in court testifying against my daughter, when in reality you were loving every second of it, weren't you, Becca? You gave the performance of your life a standing ovation. And if you were in Hollywood, you'd be on the red carpet getting an Academy Award. You make actresses like Maggie Smith and Tom Cruise look as if they can't even act. If you mean I enjoyed testifying against Candy, of course I did, Mrs. Seacourt. And do you know why? Because she deserves to be locked away, said Becca smugly. Well, congratulations, Becca. You exceeded yourself in your goals. As I was saying, you gave an Oscar-winning performance, didn't you? You, my girl, can seriously act. But all the lies you spilled in that courtroom didn't wash well with me. My daughter is a gentle soul, Becca, and I knew she would never, ever push Larry Quebec over the cliff edge, not even if she was mad with him, because she's not like that. But I do know what happened that day, because I can see through you, my girl, like a transparent glass pane. And it's not pretty what I can see, Becca. There are many people in this town who are not persuaded by what you claimed happened, and nor are they fooled by your fabulous performance in court. And do you know why, Becca? Because people in this town, unlike the jurors in that courtroom, know your character all too well. They don't believe a word of your story. Not a word. It's well established around here that you're a big, fat, juicy liar. Well, the jury believed me, didn't they? Said Becca with a delighted smirk. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, even though they thought it was an accidental thing because of the argument. I don't give a toss what people in this dozy town think. Never have, never will. People here don't count. Oh, I think the people around here are very discerning, Becca. They have you figured out. You aren't known as the girl with the long nose for nothing, are you? You're a bit of a Pinocchio, are you not? Oh, I see, Mrs. Seacourt. You think you can see through me, do you? Said Becca tauntingly. Once again, a vindictive smile crossed her lips. I highly doubt it. Your daughter Candy is in prison, and tough titty. That's what I say. She's only getting what she deserves. And every time she eats that prison slop, I couldn't feel more happy about it. At this point, I had to hold your mother back, because let's just say she was foaming at the mouth like a rabid dog. Her nostrils were flaring. She looked as if she was about to engage in a catfight with Becca and pull her hair out, and it didn't help that some of the onlookers were saying, Do it, Mrs. Seacourt! Pull Becca's hair! People were clapping and encouraging your mother. I guess people would like to see Becca being humiliated for once. I could not help but alarmingly notice that during the altercation your mother was having with Becca, the Isle of Baked Beans behind the two of them looked rather precarious, as if it would come crashing down the shelf, and then there'd be tins rolling all over the floor. The locals shopping at the time were gathering around your mother and Becca, listening to the drama unfold. They were probably enjoying it. It was better than watching something on Netflix, I'm most sure. They probably went home with their tongues wagging, talking about the huge row that had taken place in the supermarket that day, and how for once in her life Becca had been served a very large piece of humble pie.
So did you back down in the end, Mum? Asked Candy, after everybody was watching you. I mean, did the dispute actually end between the two of you? Or did Becca just bug off? What actually happened?
Are you kidding me? Chuckled Bill Seacourt. Your mother backing down? No, that would never happen, he said, shaking his head. She'd never have done that. She's as stubborn as a mule, especially when it comes to protecting her progeny. Your mother didn't back down for a second. You know why you have an issue with my daughter, Becca, she was saying. I'll tell you why. Larry was not interested in you. He was interested in my daughter Candy. And he told you as much, I believe. You couldn't bear to be rejected by Larry Quebec, could you? It was all too much for you. So if Larry wouldn't fall for you, then you'd take him out. That was your plan, wasn't it, Becca? You'd accused my daughter of deliberately pushing him over the edge of the cliff during an argument. You're a monster. That's what you are. At this point, one woman with a supermarket trolley behind her, who had been watching the scene unfold, began to clap louder than everybody else. I noticed it was your friend Lisa Larkin from school. You and her were very close, I remember.
Oh, yes, we are very close, said Candy. What did Lisa have to say?
She said,
Good on you, Mrs. Seacourt, for speaking your mind and standing up for Candy. We know what a big fat liar you are, Becca. You've always made things up. All the teachers at our school described you as being very creative with the truth and struggling to be honest. What that actually means is you're a big fat liar. Since we were at school, you were always jealous of Candy, weren't you? Everybody at school knew that. They still talk about it now. We could see it in your reactions towards her. The boys tended to like Candy. They didn't like you, and you hated her for it, didn't you? I've known Candy for a long time, since she was very little. She's never hurt a fly, nor does she ever lie. But for you, lying comes as naturally as breathing. And you always used to fight other kids in the playground. But the one thing about you, Becca, is you can sell your lies so seamlessly, even to a jury, and get everyone to believe you. How you do that, I honestly don't know, but I applaud you for it. Most of us in town, though, know you made the insidious story up, just to get your revenge on Candy. And now a man is dead because of you. And we know you pushed him over the cliff. It wasn't Candy, was it? She is innocent, and she is languishing in prison because of you. But as Mrs. Seacourt rightly points out, if Candy doesn't get justice now, she will at some point. I hate to tell you this, Becca, but Karma's a bitch. At that, Becca was absolutely furious. She left her trolley behind and stormed out of the supermarket. She claimed she didn't need to listen to any more lies. So you see, people in this town know the truth, said Bill Seacourt. I cannot tell you how many people stop your mother and say they knew that Becca lied about you, and made the story about you pushing Larry over the cliff's edge up. No one is buying Becca's outrageous story. They believe she's the one that's guilty of the crime. So people are on your side, love. You were the innocent party in all this debacle. You went to prison for no reason at all, which still makes me sick to my stomach, even thinking about it. But in the end, as me and your mother have been very reassured by the pastor at church, justice belongs with the Lord, and Becca will get her moment of reckoning. Would you believe even Larry Quebec's mother said she didn't believe Becca's story for a single second?
and she believes that it was Becca who pushed her son over the cliff. But with 2 witnesses claiming you pushed Larry over the cliff during an argument, the court unfortunately believes their testimony over yours. So it is what it is. But we can move on from here, can we not? You're out of prison now. It's a new beginning for you. Maybe it's best for us to forget what happened, because as my old mother would say, there really is no point in crying over spilt milk. I mean, let's not kid. Becca is still very much around and about in our town, and you're very likely to bump into her at some point, and I'm quite sure you would like to have words with her. I know if I'd been put in prison based on somebody else's lies, I would have something to say about it. But you know what my advice is to you, love, is to forgive her and just move on. If you see Becca in town, just ignore her. Walk away. Otherwise the anger inside you will eat away at you like it did for your mother and me, until finally your mother realized she had to let go of it, as did I. Otherwise our extreme outrage at the injustice of it all would have torn us apart, limb from limb. But those 5 years of your unfair incarceration went by so desperately slowly for the both of us. Sometimes it seemed like you'd never ever get out of prison. I used to think the justice system could be trusted in locking up the right people, he said, shaking his head sadly. But sometimes even the law gets it horribly wrong. I do sometimes wonder how many people over the course of the last century or so have been falsely imprisoned for somebody else's crime. People have been put to death, sometimes for no reason at all. It happens more often than any of us realize.
Dad, let's not go there. Please don't let's go there. It's a new beginning for us, said Candy, trying her best to put a positive spin on things. For the record, although I'm willing to forgive Becca Sanchez, I won't forget how she set me up for a fall like that. She planned to get me locked up, and she succeeded thanks to her connections in high places. Larry Quebec is dead because of her. I still recall that day with such a chilling clarity. I remember that Larry Quebec and I were walking up the cliff, hand in hand, so very casually, without a single care in the world. It was a magnificently beautiful day, and we were so happy, the 2 of us together. I really loved him, Mum.
Of course you did, love,
said Candy's mother sympathetically, putting a comforting hand on her daughter's arm and giving it an encouraging squeeze. I myself never told you this, but I imagined the 2 of you settling down one day together and getting married. You were so right for each other, and your connections were amazing. But it just was not meant to be, was it? I suppose not, said Candy, wiping a tear away from her eye. Maybe some things are just not written in the stars, are they? Even though you may wish with all your heart that they were.
That's my thoughts exactly, said Mary. You know what, darling? I've come around to the feeling that sometimes things in life happen because they're meant to happen. It wasn't fair you're going to prison for something you didn't do. But my guess is that you're a stronger person as a result of such a humiliating experience, as sometimes the unfairest blows that hit our lives so cruelly can be the very making of us. I know going to prison was not a pleasant experience for you by any manner of means, but I hope you learned some valuable lessons along the way.
That's a good way to put it, Mum, I suppose, if you want to put a positive spin on things. But if you want to know what I really learnt, it's that people who break the law are playing with fire, because nothing that could potentially result in a prison sentence is worth it. I'd tell anyone involved in a crime to think twice before they did something stupidly irrational that could potentially rob them of years of their life, and that includes drink driving or being recklessly aggressive towards someone else's property. Stuff like that. Stuff that you don't even think about at times. I was in prison with people, Mum, who were there because they were drinking and driving and killed people on the road, and their sentences were very stiff, let me tell you. They were normal, regular people, like you and me, that made one big mistake that cost them so much.
You make an excellent point, love. I don't think crime of any kind ever pays. And as for drinking and driving, well, that is the most foolish thing for anyone to do.
When I was in prison, Mum, you have no idea how many of the inmates used the word "if only" a zillion times over. If only I hadn't done this. If only I hadn't done that. Why was I so ignorant?
Why was I so naive? Why was I so stupid? Why did I listen to such insane advice? Why did I get caught up with the wrong crowd? If I'd behaved myself and followed the law, I wouldn't be in this dump. For these inmates, Mum, freedom is worth more than all the money in the world."
"Of course you're right, love. There is nothing more important than being free. Which is why me and your father are so happy that those horrible days spent in prison for you are finally behind you. We shouldn't be harping over all of it, should we? We need to forget about Becca Sanchez. We shouldn't be talking about this. You're out of prison now, and we're going to enjoy a new and promising beginning, are we not? It's about letting go of the past without any hard feelings and embracing the future, is it not?"
"You're right, Mum. I think I've finally got to let it all go. But it's not going to be easy, especially if I do see Becca Sanchez floating around town with her best friend Angie. The two of them are as bad as each other, even though I don't really blame Angie. She's just so manipulated by Becca."
"Don't even think about the two of them, love," said Candy's mother. "She's not worth your attention or time, nor is Angie for that matter. Forget about the two of them, will you?"
For a moment Candy seemed locked up in her own thoughts, as she reflected on that magnificently beautiful walk she'd taken up the cliff with Larry Kubeck on that fateful day. There was no doubt the ambitious, challenging walk that had cost them dearly, from a physical standpoint up the cliff, had certainly been worth their while. For once they reached the top, they really did feel as if they were on top of the world, as they appreciatively stared out at the magnificent views of the valley below, not realizing for a moment that the beauty would soon be confiscated from them in one mad, unforeseen moment the couple had never seen coming. "Larry didn't deserve any of this, Mum. He was a good, genuinely kind person. And yet he had his life robbed from him so cruelly because of Becca. And I think she planned his demise. If he didn't want her, she'd dispose of him, rather like the used cat litter in a litter tray. I remember he told me that Becca had sent him some hate messages because he'd told her he wasn't interested in her, but liked me. She was furious about it. She said he'd rue the day he rejected her in favour of me. Can you believe that? Too bad his cell phone records could not be recovered, because his cell phone was so badly damaged. Apparently Becca was saying that since senior high, I'd always stolen the boys she liked from her, and she'd put a stop to it once and for all. And it seems she got her wish, Mum."
"Of course I can believe that," said Mrs. Seacourt, nodding sadly. "That poisonous snake of a woman is capable of almost anything. I'm absolutely sure she's a narcissist and psychopath, and I wonder why they never evaluated her. Of course I can answer that question for you. She had the law on her side. Her father's brother knew the right people. It makes me sick to my stomach to see what she got away with. There's no doubt she has no heart or compassion, like some of those globalists that you hear about that run our world in secret. They view human beings on this planet as nothing more than cow fodder. She's exactly like that, is she not?"
"Mum, she refused to have a mental evaluation by my lawyer's psychologist, and I think that speaks volumes. It shows that she wasn't mentally sound. Do you know, I remember on the day I was walking up the cliff with Larry, not knowing how badly pear-shaped that day would ultimately go. I don't know if I ever told you this about that day, Mum, but I really sensed we weren't alone. I even told Larry as much. He told me I was being paranoid. He teased me about it because he was always saying I was overly cautious about things. I remember we both wanted to take photographs of ourselves standing on the edge of the cliff in a rather precarious position, because we knew it would be a riveting photograph. I was taking a picture of Larry, and that was when Becca emerged. She came running towards us. I think she'd hidden behind a stone. I'd barely blinked, and she pushed Larry over the cliff before he even had a fighting chance to fight back. It was all over cadavers for him in seconds, like something you see in a cheap thriller movie. I remember he went flying down the cliff to the valley below. I don't think he screamed or cried out. Perhaps because in that moment time must have stood still for him. I couldn't bear to look, Mum. I just knew what I'd see. I knew there was no way Larry could survive that treacherous fall. Tears unabashedly slipped down Candy's cheeks, as the dreadful memories of that day that she'd tried to suppress for her own peace of mind had rudely suddenly come galloping back.
I remember turning around, Mum. I looked at Becca and I said to her, "What the hell have you done? You've just killed my best friend and the man I wanted to spend the rest of my life with." Do you know what she did, Mum? She gave me a big triumphant smirk and sniggering she said, "Well, I guess I put an end to that ridiculous fairy tale of yours, didn't I? You took Larry from me. He was mine. So if I can't have him, neither can you. So sorry, there'll be no wedding bells for you any time soon, I don't think. But you know what I do think? I think the prison gates might be open to receive you, Candy. And hopefully you'll be locked up for good. And you'll never see the light of day again. Or better still, you might be on death row and be executed for your crime. You're getting what you deserve. Larry rejected me because of you. You need to suffer for what you did. But unlike Larry, you'll go on for a very long time, I suspect, while you're locked away in a cell. And I hope it'll give you time to reflect that you don't mess with the likes of me. Do you understand that? What are you talking about, Becca? You just murdered my boyfriend, and you're suggesting I should be locked up in prison for what you did? But you won't get away with this. Oh, but I can get away with it, Candy. That's the whole point, isn't it? I've thought everything through very, very carefully, and I've made sure that there are no cracks. I have a witness, don't I, that will testify on my behalf. Won't you, Angie? She called out. And that was when Angie appeared from behind the stone, looking incredibly sheepish, but eager, of course, to do Becca's bidding. "Angie, what did you witness a moment ago?" Becca asked her sharply. Angie sounded as if she was rehearsing a script that she'd practiced 100 times over. She pointed a finger at me and said, I saw you, Candy." "You saw me what, Angie?" I challenged her. "Don't tell me you're going to lie about what happened here." "You saw what Becca did. She pushed my boyfriend over the edge of the cliff. Surely you're not going to lie to the police about this?" "Maybe I did, but I'm going to lie to the police. I'll do anything for Becca. She's my best friend. I'm going to tell the police that we both saw you push Larry Quebec over the cliff after you were arguing with him." "That's right," said Becca smugly, looking as if she was the cat that had got all the cream. "Angie and I were taking a leisurely walk up the cliff together, and we heard these arguing voices, didn't we? We wanted to find out what was going on. Then we stumbled upon you and Larry Quebec on the top of the cliff, having a row together. We witnessed you pushing him over the cliff to his death." "But that's a lie," I protested. "Why would you do something like that?" After that, Becca began to reassure me, Mum, that she could act like a pro. She began to unscrupulously cry tears that were real. "That poor, poor man! Look what you've done! You've killed him, Candy! How could you? You're a monster! What's wrong with you, Candy?" I want to tell you, Mum, when Becca burst into tears like that and acted like she was genuinely distraught, I knew then and there that she was a fabulous actress and that I was in seriously deep trouble, because she can so easily twist the truth around her finger like a lock of hair. And as I predicted, Becca performed spectacularly in front of the police, who aren't easily fooled, are they, Mum? But this time they ate up her story, as if it was the gospel truth, and of course she had Angie to back her up all the way. It didn't help that she called in her father's brother for help at once, to defend her cause, so she knew all the right people to help her advance those lies of hers. So she genuinely got away with murder. It still makes me sick to my stomach. Candy's mother nodded her head in agreement. "There are not many people in the world that are as crafty, duplicitous and manipulative as Becca is. I understand that Becca has read hundreds of crime novels over the years, and books that tell you how to get away with a perfect murder. She knows how the police act and behave, so she had them eating out of her hands, exactly where she wanted them. She also knew people in high places like her father's brother, so yes, she was extremely advantaged. And she and Angie certainly managed to persuade a jury that you were the guilty party. I remember when she burst into tears in that courtroom, my heart almost flip-flopped, as she recounted what she claimed happened that day, when apparently you pushed Larry Quebec over the cliff. It did not surprise me one bit that people were fooled by Becca's crocodile tears. But I know when she yawned and was covering her mouth,
I think she was actually genuinely smirking, as everybody in that courtroom ate up her story as if it was the gospel truth. I knew then we were in serious trouble, as did your lawyer, who told me she'd never met anyone as slippery as Becca.
She's always been like that, Mum. She even lied successfully during a polygraph test, if you remember, which she passed with flying colours, while Angie refused to take one, which is very interesting. I thought polygraph tests were reliable, Mum, foolproof, so to speak, but it seems that even the most reliable techniques to pick up a criminal are grotesquely flawed.
Well, polygraphs don't always stand up in a court of law for that very reason, said Candy's mother. People have been known to beat a polygraph, although that is not something that the specialists are prepared to admit, as regrettably it highlights to them that nothing is ever foolproof in this life, even though we like to believe it is, probably for our peace of mind. I guess when you've got a psychopath like Becca, well, she believes her own lies, does she not? She doesn't bat an eyelid when she lies. She has no guilt response that a monitor would lightly pick up, no sweating, no increase in heartbeat. So I guess it makes perfect sense that she can defeat a polygraph very easily. Think about it. A person very much aware of their guilt will lightly breathe heavily and have other kinds of physical reactions to the questions that are asked on a lie detector. But no, not Becca. Remember what your lawyer said. She said she represented a guilty guy once, who admitted to her he'd killed a person. But he passed the polygraph test that found him to be innocent on this, and boasted to your lawyer about how you could outmaster anything if you were shrewd enough. I guess if you have no conscience, your breathing responses are going to be pretty neutral, aren't they? Luckily, the evidence against that man was overwhelming at the time, so his polygraph didn't count for much anyway.
So there we are. That is the end of part 2. Part 3 is tomorrow night. I look forward to you joining me then. Until next time, goodbye and good night.